welcome to week 12. We've got insights and answers to help you make the decisions on who you should be starting or sitting this week, which is especially critical because we have 6 teams on bye this week. We have the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets, and the Jaguars all on bye this week. So I'm sure you're trying to debate who you should be starting versus sitting after losing a couple of people, probably.
Yeah, those teams had some big fantasy players on there, so I'm sure there are some teams that are hurting.
Yep. As we jump into our games for this week, one thing we do want to call out is be sure to catch us next week for our Thanksgiving specials. We'll have videos out earlier in the week since we have games on Thursday and Friday and Sunday and Monday next week for week 13, and no one's on bye. So it's going to be an action-packed Thanksgiving week that we'll have our own contest with a prize pack going on as well. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll get notified when our videos come out early next week.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Let's jump in to week 12 games. Starting off with Baltimore is heading to the LA Chargers. Baltimore's favored by 3. This is our Monday night game, but it's our highest over-under game. That's why we're starting with it. Currently, there are no injuries reported, which is exciting. 2 healthy teams. The Chargers are coming off of their win over the Bengals, which I was very lucky, and that meant that I won our Pick'em League this week. And then Baltimore is coming off of a close loss to the Steelers. Hopefully, their kicker, Tucker, has recovered from whatever was going on last weekend because that was a mess. I think that was his worst game
Yeah,
in his career.
he hasn't had a good season, so I hope they get it together because they're going to need him going down to these last few games.
Yep. And so the Chargers have allowed some of the lowest fantasy points for opposing teams, though the Steelers have allowed even less, and we just saw how Baltimore did against the Steelers. Baltimore, on the other hand, have allowed a large amount of fantasy points for the opposing team. So let's start sit. I think it's a no-brainer. You have to start Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, definitely. I like this game to go pretty well. I think that the Ravens have figured something out and the Chargers are going to be throwing the ball and having some success. So I don't see this as a defensive stand down. Neither does Vegas putting that 51-point total. We think that the Ravens are going to control the flow.
And I mean, even in that Chargers Bengals game last weekend, we did see Bengals come back to get it very close in that end. So we can kind of expect Baltimore to be able to score some points in this.
Yeah, we can. So I think they're going to have more trouble running Derrick Henry. You still have to start him, but I think the run game will be a little bit slower and it'll be dependent on getting that pass game going. So can they bring in Zay Flowers and do you want to start Zay Flowers? It's a little bit risky because the Chargers have been very good, but at the same time, that's the only way that this game hits 51 is if the passing attack is there. And I think on the other side of the ball, you've got to start Justin Herbert. He has looked so good, and they have gone to him and they're letting him throw. So Herbert is a strong start. I think we talked about Lad McConkey being injured, but he's not on the injury report.
He's
Hmm.
not on the injury report anymore, which was surprising to me too.
Yeah, so something definitely to keep an eye on because I don't want to start really Quentin Johnson with Lad McConkey in there. So something to watch and might have to take a risk because of all of the buys though. And this is still a great game and a great matchup. So if you're going to take a risk, do it in this game.
And then on the Chargers side, I'd also say their tight end, Will Disley, which is a good call out from our waiver wire episode this week. I think we talked about him, especially with that potential injury news around Lad McConkey. Disley still has low roster ownership, so if you're realizing your tight end is out this weekend, might be a good option to go grab from the waiver wires.
He's being consistently given targets in this offense. And in this game, I'm sure they're going to lean on him again.
In the maybe start, I put Isaiah Likely. I know we've seen some great weeks from Likely as a tight end on the Baltimore side. We've also seen low production some weeks. It's been a real boomer bust season. Um, he does well against zone defense coverage, which the Chargers tend to prefer. and he does look strong coming back from that hamstring injury, but that is a risk. It might not be the best option, but it is an option.
Yeah. I I think that's a risky start. But if you have to, actually, I think I'd pop over and see if Disley was available before starting Likely.
Let's move on to the Detroit at Indy game. Detroit is favored by 7. Over under is 49.5. I didn't see any reported injuries currently outside from the historical ones. So nothing new. Detroit's coming off of that win against Jacksonville, a 52-6 win. On the other hand, Indy is also coming off of a win, 28-27 over the Jets.
Yeah, Indy got something going last week. I don't think it continues this week against the Lions. The Lions defense is too solid for the Indy offense here. And the Colts defense, I'm not really sure they have one. So I think the Lions get to run the AFC South and just finish off with a beating of the Colts. And they seem pretty happy getting to 50, and then they put their backups in, but 50 seems to be the Lions' goal in every game. How quickly can we score 50 points and everyone gets touchdown? So, because everyone gets touchdown, you are definitely starting all your Detroit players. So, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, they're all, you start them. It's going to be a great matchup for them, and they do like to practice with everyone.
I think this is also on the other side of week 2. Sit your indie players. Even Jonathan Taylor, who I know a lot of people love as a running back, this is just not the weekend for it.
Yeah, it's not. They're going to be way behind. And although they may still run Jonathan Taylor, that Lions defense against the run has been incredible. So I don't like that. And then with Richardson at quarterback, honestly, it wouldn't matter who was at quarterback. Flacco wouldn't be any better. So I support the Richardson decision. I just don't see him doing really well in this matchup. I do like that Detroit defense because Richardson can turn over the ball pretty well.
So let's go to the Eagles, who are heading to the Rams. Eagles are favored by 3. Over under is 49. This is our Sunday night game. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that the Rams are at home Sunday night. And then I guess they have to do the flip of the stadium for the Monday night game for the Chargers.
Yeah, paint the field, different color. Well, it's really the same colors almost, but
Same yellow, different blue, I think.
yeah, it's not really the colors. They'll have to do like different logos, but they'll be out there and it's their night game. So they just really get Monday to redo it. I hope they don't have to stay up all night.
Yeah. There were some
Anyhow,
injuries that were surprising to me on this one. I saw Jalen Hurts was limited at practice Wednesday, and Devonta Smith was a non-participant on Wednesday. Smith having a hamstring injury.
yeah,
A little concerning
the,
there.
the Smith injury has me worried. Hamstrings on not participating in practice don't usually end the week well. Jalen Hurts a play, but Devonta Smith, I don't think so.
And
So,
the Eagles have allowed the least amount of fantasy points per game and have been on a win streak after coming back from a bye in week 5. So they're really getting it done. Rams on the other side won against the Patriots last week. I think you have to start Saquon Barkley on the Eagles side.
I love Saquon Barkley in this matchup. He is a must start. And AJ Brown is a must start, especially if Devonta Smith is out of this game.
Yep.
Who else are you starting?
I'd say Cup. I think I know the two main wide receivers are Cup and Nakua, but in this case I'd definitely say start Cup.
Got to
Kua,
start
I'm a little more
Nakua.
hesitant.
Yeah, I'm a little worried with how he's often injured.
Leaving
But
games mid-game or getting pulled from games mid-game.
yeah, and it seems like the Eagles just kind of shut teams down. So we keep thinking they're going to be high scoring and then they just shut them down. So I am concerned, but I don't feel like you can bench Nakua either.
I think you can if you have better options. So this is definitely one
Ye-
where evaluate your options, and if you have a better matchup for another wide receiver, it's probably the week to keep Nakua on the bench.
but probably
Similarly,
not going to be in that situation given the 6 teams with buys.
true. Similarly, I'd also say Williams. If you have a better running back matchup, go for that. But Williams is still projected at 13 fantasy points, but I'd be a little concerned because the Eagles have been shutting down a lot of the opposing team's offenses.
Yeah, Vegas doesn't think they're going to, putting this at an over under of 49. So
True.
if we believe in Vegas and it's only a 3-point spread, then we're pushing all of these players in and starting. And that's a really good point that we probably should make is that is one reason that we do pay so much attention to the lines and the over unders because Vegas tends to get these things right because they're losing money if they don't. And that's why we pay attention to it. So if we go on Vegas, we don't think that's quite going to happen in this game, but if we go on that, then we're starting all of these players.
Let's move on to Arizona at Seattle. Seattle's favored by 1, over under is 47.5. Couple of injuries on each side, mostly Day Mercado, an Arizona running back, was limited at practice on Wednesday. Noah Fant did not practice Wednesday, as well as Brady Russell. So 2 tight ends on the Seattle side did not practice on Wednesday.
Yeah,
That
you're
gives
probably
me,
not playing them
yeah,
anyway.
you're not probably playing
Or
them.
DeMercado, you're not playing him either with James Conner, but you must start James Conner. So one of the things I wanted to point out in this game is the weather. So the West Coast this weekend is getting slammed with rain, and this game is in Seattle, and it looks like it's going to be raining at game time and throughout this game right now. That is the forecast. If that's the case, does this turn into more of that running situation where we're just seeing Kenneth Walker and James Conner have a day?
And Lumen Field in Seattle is an outdoor stadium. There is no cover. If it rains, it is going to rain on the field, and it turns a little bit into
Yeah.
a water polo game instead of a actual football game.
Yeah, and we often see those winds kick up in Seattle too, which limits the passing game. You still have to start DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith-Njigba has really stepped up. When Metcalf went out, he really got that relationship going with Geno Smith. So I'm starting him still as well. I often am really cautious on the weather, but then it turns out to really not be an issue. So it's one of those situations where, again, you can watch it, but you're probably going to have to start all your stars. On the maybe side, Kyler Murray. I mean, we're Kyler Murray and Geno Smith. We haven't been playing them as much as I would say Metcalf and JSN. So if you can be a little more cautious, I'd really check that weather schedule and see what you're getting into in this game.
And in that same fashion, Marvin Harrison Jr. too. Because if
Yeah.
the weather's not there, this is Harrison Jr.'s first year, and it could be a mess trying to make those catches or throw the ball. Well, let's chat San Francisco, who's headed to Green Bay.
I'm
Green
looking
Bay's
at the
favored.
weather for Green Bay. Make sure I didn't miss that. Chance of rain showers, but only 39%, where the Seahawks are 68%. So it's less than half, only 40%. We'll go with it's not going to pour down rain and get inches like I think they're supposed to get on the West Coast. So, yeah. Injuries. The center for Green Bay is questionable. Josh Jacobs was limited at practice on Wednesday. And then your favorite, Nick Bosa, did not practice on Wednesday. I know you were really keying on that last week and felt that that was what allowed Seahawks to come back and win that game against the 49ers was Bosa going out.
Yep. Kittle, on the other hand, says he's definitely playing on Sunday. So San Francisco's coming off of that loss that you just mentioned to Seattle. Green Bay is coming off of a win against the Bears. And the Packers have allowed two Bears receivers to gain at least 12 PPR points. Amon-Ra had 18 points against the Packers, and Brian Thompson Jr. had 15 points. So I think it's an easy sell to say you better be starting on Jennings and Debo and, of course, McCaffrey.
Yeah, and on McCaffrey, there was no easing McCaffrey back in. They just, like, put him in and he went. So, he didn't do great. I mean, he wasn't like McCaffrey scoring numbers last week, but you're just excited that you've got McCaffrey at this point and that he's playing finally. So, you're starting McCaffrey.
I'd even say a maybe for Ricky Pearsall. I think it kind of depends on I say a maybe because I worried they'd be spreading it too thin, and then you're like, why am I starting Debo or Juwan Jennings?
I don't wanna go too deep here unless you really have to. So, unless you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for Pearsall, I would look for a better option.
And then we've talked previously about the Green Bay wide receiver core, kind of you can avoid just because they spread it too thin, so they don't have a preferred person. It's been hard to guess who on a given week is going to be that person.
They have. Last week, it was Christian Watson, and I actually was playing him, thank goodness, and he had a good game. I feel like this week, maybe it goes back to Jordan Reed, that he has the better matchup, but I feel like both Reed and Watson are playable in this game just because they're going to need both of them to score.
Well, let's move on to the Patriots who are heading to sunny weather down with the Dolphins. Miami's favored by 7.5. Over under is 46.5. The Patriots have a lot of questionable defensive players. I know they haven't had the strongest defense. I think adding on a lot of questionable defense players is probably not helpful either. And then on the Miami side, Tyreek Hill with that wrist injury is questionable and limited at practice.
You know Tyreek Hill's playing, and you know you gotta start him against the Patriots. We don't need to even have that discussion. Tyreek Hill's in. Is Jalen Waddle in? And I do like this matchup, so I'm pretty much starting most of my Dolphins players. So Tua, Achane, Janu Smith, if you need a tight end, they're all great options in this game. The only one that I'm sitting is Raheem Mostert because he got benched last week.
Too many dropped balls.
Yeah, he likes to fumble the balls now. So McDaniel didn't have a choice. He needs to go with what's working, and it's not Mostert.
Yeah. I think one of the ones you brought up was Jonnu Smith, who is, if you're looking for a tight end, he might be on your waiver wire and another good option here.
Yeah, he definitely is. On the Patriots side, Ramadre Stevenson, Miami's also giving up points, so I don't mind going to Ramadre. He gets all the carries. He's a great start. Or Hunter Henry. Drake May is looking solid. Drake May's not a bad start if you need it in this game either. So I like this game to even end up, I feel like on the over. It's going to be 75 and clear and sunny down in Miami.
Everyone's going to be enjoying that good weather.
They are. Yeah. It's going
Well,
to be a
let's
nice
chat.
game.
Let's head a little bit north and chat Dallas at Washington. Washington's favored by 10. Over under is 44.5. There's a handful of injuries on the Dallas side, including Jake Ferguson with a concussion, who's questionable. CeeDee Lamb, who is also questionable with a back and foot injury.
So Washington's coming off the two straight losses to the Steelers and Eagles, which were both close games. I Obviously they're going to get it right in this game. So you've got to start Jaden Daniels, you've got to start Terry McLaurin. No brainers. I think the question is who can you trust on the Dallas side of the ball? And I know CeeDee Lamb's on the injury report. CeeDee Lamb's going to play.
I still say don't start him.
I'm starting him. I know we're different on this one. They're going to throw the ball. Cooper Rush passed for like 300 yards last week. Somebody's going to be catching the ball. Jake Ferguson is out. All they've got CeeDee Lamb. I'm starting CeeDee Lamb. Anybody I drafted in my first 4 rounds, if they're breathing, they're going into my lineup pretty much.
He might get some points, but looking at the last 2 games, like they've gotten 10 points and they've gotten 6 points as a team. Dallas has scored 10 points and 6 points. And so I just don't see the touchdown numbers being there.
All right. Well, I'm going to play CeeDee Lamb over Ricky Pearsall any day. So if that's my choices, if that's what I'm looking at, and we've got 6 teams on bye, So it might definitely be my choice.
I would say the Washington defense is probably a good streaming play.
Yeah, Washington defense is a great play. And the Washington running back, Brian Robinson Jr., is a great play as well. And you're starting him and you're excited about it. I don't know about Eckler because I don't know how much they're going to share the ball with Robinson back in, but they do like to share it. And there should be pretty much enough to go around, I think, in this game running the ball.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to that if you don't have anyone else, if you want to risk it, maybe we get a bit of a Detroit style, you get a touchdown game.
We're
I,
going to have a few of those games this week. The next one we're going to is the same way, Kansas City at Carolina.
yeah,
So
let's talk about that one. Kansas City's
y-
favored by 10. Over under is
10.
43.
Yep, it's fun. So, injuries?
Do you think we're getting Pacheco back?
I don't
Maybe
think we
back, but
are.
not confirmed yet. No.
I don't think we're getting him. So the Chiefs play week 13 on a short week. They're our Black Friday game. So I feel like they hold him out this week, play the Panthers without Pacheco. They don't need him, and then bring him back for Black Friday game next week. So I don't think we see him this week.
On the other side, Thielen also took reps Wednesday for the first time in 8 weeks. So maybe Thielen's coming back.
Yeah, so for Carolina, we have two new faces I think we're going to see this week, and that's Adam Thielen at wide receiver. And then Jonathan Brooks is finally going to make his NFL debut at running back. We've been waiting weeks for that to see it. So, not really sure how much that's going to eat into Chuba Hubbard's production, but it's going to take away some. And I'm excited to see what Brooks can do. Kansas City's a tough defense to do anything against, but it is here in Carolina, and maybe they're coming off their bye week. Maybe they'll have a few tricks up their sleeve.
I think you and I have a difference of opinion on how this game is going to go. And I see it as potentially more of the conservative side where Kansas City's going to win, but they're not going to run up the score like Detroit does.
Yeah, we're different on this one. This is a run up the score, pump up Patrick Mahomes kind of game. Mahomes hasn't had a lot of success this year passing the ball, and this is the best matchup he's got. And I just feel that Andy Reid is just wanting to get some real practice in. And this becomes a you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. I'm out here practicing and having fun kind of game. Now, they may bench Mahomes at the end of the third quarter after they put up their 50 points, and they might allow Carolina to rack up 20 points. But I do see this as one of those kind of games.
Well, let's continue on to Tampa Bay headed to the Giants. Tampa Bay is favored by 5.5. Over under is 41.5. We're getting into the lower scoring games now. Um, Evans was limited at practice Wednesday, which is kind of an exciting news that he could be coming back soon. It is off of a hamstring injury. We know how long those can linger. On the other side, Darius Slayton for the Giants has been in concussion protocol. But he did practice fully Wednesday. And then I think the biggest news is the Giants bench Daniel Jones. And so Tommy DeVito is going to start instead. Other side, Tampa Bay is coming off of a week 11 bye and is pretty well rested.
They're well rested, and I think this may be our conservative game. Tampa Bay is not going to need to do a lot, and I feel like Evans will be available, but I don't know that I would start him. I don't think they need him in this game to beat the Giants, and this is just a game where we're going to see a lot of Rashad White and Bucky Irving running all over the Giants. So you're starting Baker, probably. He'll still pass to Bucky Irving, and he'll pass to some other people, but I would keep Evans on the bench.
Makes sense. Well, and I think that the Tampa Bay defense is an option as well. So while they've historically allowed
Definitely.
a lot of points, I mean, we're talking about the Giants. And the Giants' replacement QB is blitz averse too. So they don't need to work as hard to apply the pressure and then maybe get an interception or at least a couple of sacks.
Yeah. Tampa Bay's been allowing like an average of over 30 points a game, and this one they won't.
I think on the
All right.
other side, one that I'm curious about is Tyrone Tracy. So it's a new quarterback on the Giants. Could be handing off the ball a lot more than trying to force passing, especially if they're getting pressured. And the Bucks have given up the fifth most fantasy points to backs this season. Tracy's been averaging 15 fantasy points per game since week 8. Might be a good week, but I think it's a bit questionable with the new quarterback.
Well, the thing is, this team just becomes completely one-dimensional. They can't pass the ball, so you can just
It's easy
stack
to shut down that
everybody
one.
and shut them down. Yeah, so I don't like Tyrone Tracy this week, even against the Bucks.
Well, let's go on to Denver at the Raiders. Denver is favored by 6. Over under is 41. A couple of Raiders players questionable, including Zamir White, who didn't practice Wednesday, and then Alexander Madison, who also didn't practice Wednesday. Denver defense is solid. I really don't think this is our common saying every week of don't start anyone on the Vegas side except Bowers.
Yeah, he's the only startable Raiders player. I don't even care who is at running back, and the fact that it'd just be one running back. You can't run against Denver, so don't play him. Um, on the Denver side, you definitely want to start Bo Nix and probably Cortland Sutton. Anyone
I
else?
I would say Estime. I know he had a good week and then a bad week. Kind of in the same way that you talk about the return to mean, maybe we see another good week of Estime.
Yeah, or Sean Payton was just messing with us, and
Or
we
maybe
just
this turns
see.
into a let's build up Bo Nix again and you get a touchdown for running backs.
It could be maybe Bo Nix just runs for 3 touchdowns.
I think that's why you're starting Bo Nix no matter what here.
Yeah, you are for sure. But
Uh
not a lot of excitement in this game. A
no.
lot of sits.
A lot of sets. Let's go on to the Titans who are heading to Houston. Houston's favored by 7.5. Over under is 40.5. Titans are taking some injuries too. You have Calvin Ridley, who may be sick. Hopefully, he feels better by this weekend, but he's currently questionable. Tyjae Spears, their running back, is in the concussion protocol and didn't practice Wednesday. This is a divisional game. Houston's coming off a win over Dallas, while Tennessee's coming off of 2 losses. Tennessee
Yeah.
defense hasn't been awful.
They haven't been awful, but they haven't been great either. I like the Texans in this game at home and kind of their get right game and spread it around a little bit. You got to start CJ Stroud. You got to start Joe Mixon and Nico Collins. Outside of that, I don't know that there are any Titans players that I want to start. I'd be tempted. I don't mind starting Pollard at running back, because with Tyjae Spears out, it does put it all on Pollard. So that one's definitely a possibility given the whole bye week situation.
I think one that could come up is Dalton Schultz, which tight end for Houston. It might be time to go look at one of the other ones we've recommended in this that are probably on your waiver wire with a low rostered percentage, maybe Jonnu Smith. Titans haven't really been allowing any tight ends to gain more than 60 receiving yards, and Schultz's usage has just been declining the last 4 games. And he hasn't had a touchdown this year. It just seems like this is not his year. Find someone else time.
Well, I think more than the Titans haven't been allowing it, it comes into play that a lot of times we see tight ends be used more when the game is either competitive or it's difficult. The defenses are playing well. And most teams aren't having trouble beating the Titans, so they don't need to turn to their tight ends. And therefore, they're just not being used in the games against the Titans. Maybe they're shutting them down, but maybe they're just not being used because that down the
Probably
field
both.
option's wide open, which is what we saw with Detroit.
Yep. Well, let's go on to Minnesota at Chicago. Minnesota's favored. Over under is 39. A slew of things on the injury side that I don't know are really going to matter too much. Big one, I think, is Sam Darnold showing up as limited Wednesday's practice and questionable was a little bit concerning. But it doesn't seem like it's something that's going to prevent him from playing on Sunday.
And then we've got DeAndre Swift, I think, is the only other really significant injury at this point, and he's questionable and didn't practice on Wednesday, which could mean that there are some interesting plays at running back for Chicago. Hold on.
Vegas doesn't think this is going to be a high scoring game, and I can kind of see where they're coming from. I know a couple weeks ago we had Minnesota going against Jacksonville, and we all thought Minnesota was just going to blow Jacksonville away, and we didn't see that. And even against the Titans last week, it was a lot closer than I think anyone expected of that game. Uh,
Yeah.
so while Minnesota's built up that 3-win streak, the Bears are also looking a bit improved after the coaching changes. And I think the Bears are kind of angry after that loss to the Packers last week by the blocked field goal.
Definitely could be. There was definitely controversy in that, saying that there was leverage used on that field goal attempt. And I think the Bears filed a complaint with the NFL. Not that it
Yep.
changes the win loss, but they're still upset about that. And yeah, their new offensive coordinator is definitely simplifying the offense and making it faster, which is already, we saw an improvement last week. The Vikings defense is just really good. So that's the hard part in starting the Bears players in this situation. So the Vikings are blitz happy. Caleb's going to be riding my bench again this week because I just don't trust him. But I do feel that the offensive coordinator Thomas Brown is making good changes and heading the right direction.
I think on the other side, the Chicago Bears defense is also pretty good at applying pressure. And so that's gonna put some extra pressure and rush Darnold. Gives me some pause about playing him, combined with that this is probably going to be a low scoring game. If you have another quarterback option, might be the week to play them. But like we keep saying, with 6 teams on bye, you're
Yeah.
probably struggling.
Yeah.
Definitely
And you
start
got to start
Jefferson though.
Yeah, you got to start Justin Jefferson, but I think that the reason why this is sitting at 39-point total is because both sides are going to send the pressure.
Well, that wraps up our week 12 games and trying to figure out who to start and who to sit. Check out the link in the description to join us this week for a weekly contest. Make sure to subscribe because we're going to have our special Thanksgiving contest with prize packs next week. And all our videos are going to come out earlier in the week because it's going to be the Thanksgiving, Black Friday excitement. Good luck this weekend and see you next week.